Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of TheParkGod. I know, everyone's gonna be saying, whoa, you went from vlogs to doing just audio only and having clips, and now you're finally back to showing your face. Guys, I know, I'm sorry, but if I'm being completely honest with you, I just had a lot of content that I had already pre-recorded from Florida, and so I was like, well, there's just no reason for me to show my face. But I'm out of that content now. So I don't really have much of a choice now, do I? Today we're gonna be talking about Universal Studios Orlando's Halloween Horror Nights mazes that were just released. They released a lot of original mazes this year, so I'm very curious of what that's about. I mean, do they usually do that? I don't really think so. I've gone to Universal Halloween Horror Nights in Orlando like once before. They did have a lot of original mazes, but I feel like they have more original mazes than they usually do. But they also get a Quiet Place this year. That is the IP that they definitely have. But before we get into all that, make sure you guys hit that like button and subscribe so you guys can see some more amazing content. Let's get into it. The first maze I want to talk about is Halloween Horror Nights Slaughter Cinema 2. For any of you guys that weren't aware, Slaughter Cinema has been at Halloween Horror Nights before. The last time this maze was used was in 2018, so it's been quite some time since then. They basically get inspired by a lot of different horror genres, especially ones like Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, and they find different ways and versions to show those characters off, but not necessarily. They also find ways to add and implement other characters that don't necessarily have their own movies, but they make creative aspects of taking very everyday sort of situations and scenarios and making them into horror things. Barber shops, Christmas time, basically all these scenarios are now out to try to kill you. I personally don't necessarily mind it because it just brings a whole unique feel to these sort of mazes. Especially, I feel like it's harder to do original mazes that people can really get invested in, you know? I feel like having IP automatically gives you a dub, but places like Knott's Berry Farm or Knott's Scary Farm also have to implement their own sort of original scary ideas for mazes that could possibly intrigue people. And speaking of Knott's Scary Farm, they also have their own slasher sort of maze. So last year, Knott's Scary Farm also had their own cinema slasher. Same name, basically. I don't know why. I feel like the difference between Knott's Scary Farm and Universal Studios Orlando is that Universal Studios Cinema Slasher is basically bringing barbershops, Christmas. They have sort of monsters that resemble and give the idea of the iconic monsters that you would assume would be associated with those areas in the maze. But Cinema Slasher in Knott's Scary Farm was blatantly showing you exactly basically the characters that they were trying to represent. So you would walk through areas that were clearly based on Michael Myers and Halloween. You would walk through areas that was obviously Jason Voorhees inspired. They even gave us an exhibit that was basically Saw. I've never even been in anything Saw-like. Don't get mad at me, Six Flags. I know you already made your own Saw maze. And to my surprise, honestly, the Cinema Slasher at Knott's Scary Farm was probably the best maze that they had there. Especially the Michael Myers one, or at least the Michael Myers inspired one. I actually crapped my pants for that. I think I actually might have been scared more of that than the Horror Nights maze. Oh my god. Next on our list is gonna be Goblin's Feast and Major Sweets Candy Factory. Look, I'm gonna be real. I'm not even gonna pretend to act like I know what either of these things are gonna be. Look, okay. My speculation is that Goblin's Feast is gonna be like a gigantic ogre, or like maybe multiple ogres or something, and they're all trying to kill you. Or like maybe you're like transported into some like medieval town, and like the goblins are just attacking, and then they're just like, I gotta eat your intestines, you know what I mean? And then the Major Sweets Candy Factory, that's definitely like, all right, if Willy Wonka, I mean, he was already psychotic, but like if Willy Wonka was psychotic and murderistic, and then like you mix that, like what if he poisons the chocolate? Or like what if the bubblegum makes your head just blow up and like that, right? Like that's pretty crazy, right? Yeah? We're we're gonna move on to the next one. The next maze on the list is the Museum of Deadly Exhibits. Now, I just want to state, I think there's a maze in California that I've been to maybe twice or so. If someone likes horror and you want to take them on a date somewhere scary and it's not Halloween time, take them to that museum, because that is the easiest way to satisfy and get that horror itch off of them without having to drop like $1 million or wait all the way until October or September. My hunch is that it's basically gonna be like that museum. You go and you see a bunch of little torture things, but unlike the museum that I go to, where I'm just looking at it and being like, oh my God, that looks pretty painful. Good thing it's not me. I think it's actually happening in real time. Like, you walk inside the museum and you're just seeing all of these sort of torture chambers just all around you of people getting just ripped to shreds in probably the most horrific way. My biggest fear of those places, you ever seen those doors with spikes inside and they just slam it? That's what, watch, that's gonna be in the maze. I promise you it is. The monsters of Latin America. This is something I know about. I know this maze like the back of my hand. I went to Halloween Horror Nights a total of, I think, 9 to 10 times last year. So I basically clocked in and had my own shift at Halloween Horror Nights. And one of the main things I remember about this maze is that they had this one area that just smelled like pork. Oh my God, it just smelled like pork and it was disgusting. And I walked through that maze so many times, dude. So many times. It'll never get out of my mind. I know exactly what that sin is. Well, they're finally getting that. Not gonna lie, it's a pretty scary maze. I enjoyed my time besides that pig area, but that's how they basically replicate the smell of human remains, and I will take that over real ones, so I'm completely fine with it. I think I also just respect that not only do they represent and show their own original Universal monsters, but they take the time to even showcase the monsters of a certain different area, you know, and it just kind of really builds the world of being like, all of these different regions and places have their own folk tales of horror, and I hope that they would actually go ahead and continue to do that. I love seeing stuff like that. We love cultural horror. Our next thing is gonna be the Triplets of Terror. Once again, no clue what that could possibly be. I think, honestly, if I really rack my brain, it's giving Purge vibes. It's giving Purge. Does that not look like Purge vibes to you? No? Okay, maybe it's just me, but it's giving Purge vibes. Look, at the end of the day, I'm just happy that they actually change up what they're doing. Like, I love Not Scary Farm and I love going. I think that was the first horror maze place I ever went to because my dad took me there when I was around 13. I had never been to anything like that before, so it was amazing to be able to do that, and it honestly started this whole path of amusement parks, horror, and just scary stuff for me. But one thing I will say that I wish Not Scary Farm did is update their mazes more. They usually keep the exact same mazes and never change them out. Maybe they'll add like 2 or 3 different mazes, but they don't like doing a complete overhaul of mazes. Halloween Horror Nights is giving us a complete overhaul of mazes. These are all original ideas, and it's not going to be as much IP, at least at the Orlando location, because at this time they have yet to release California one. And I think when it comes to California, our licensing about having certain mazes is completely different than Orlando. I think because we live in California, we have the rights to more IP based horror mazes, so I wouldn't be surprised if the majority of the mazes we get are all IP based. Like, I can see that, which in my opinion is fair because their mazes are bigger than ours because they have more space. So I think it's only fair if we get all the IP stuff since they get the bigger, wider mazes. But that's just me. That's just me. Now, I don't want to forget about mentioning A Quiet Place. Obviously, that's been mentioned as the IP house that's going to clearly be at both locations. We still don't know what the scare zones or all that is going to be based off of, but I'm excited for it. I've loved watching the Quiet Place movies, and I'm really excited to see this day one prequel because I've watched the other 2. I think it will be great. I think it's always great to watch post-apocalyptic movies or TV shows right before the events happen because you already know what the catastrophic situation is after what's been unfolded. But in this, like, I just love watching how everything's chill before it goes right into chaos, how they even figure out how to be quiet. And honestly, I think they're gonna try to implement some sort of silent factor, like a Like maybe they'll have this area where you're completely silent, and if you make a noise, something pops out to get you. That would be a really cool thing. Or it'll be even funnier if you can like scare your own friends by making noises and stuff like that. But anyways, that's gonna be all for this video. Please write in the comments, guys. I love to get feedback from you and hear what you guys have to say about these things, so I'm not just hearing the voices in my head. But please go ahead, let me know, are you excited for these mazes? Do you wish that Orlando had more IP mazes? Is there movies that you wanted to be made and you were hopeful that were gonna be made and they just ended up not being made? Or are you really excited about them doing original stuff that possibly can blow your mind more than if they even did IP? And honestly, it would garner more respect because they did this from scratch. But anyways, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the lines. Peace.